Hello friends. In our broad theme on the Union Legislature, today we will be discussing the parliamentary committees. One of the most crucial innovation to streamline the working of the parliament in an increasingly complex political and administrative system in a country like that of India is the committee system. In recent years, almost all the democratic states have failed the urge or have failed the need of a welfare state. They have recognized the very need of a welfare state. Such a state system requires on part of the government to dedicate itself and also to channelize their activities for the general welfare of the public. Now, the channelization of their activities means to carry out their administration efficiently. Administration in turn requires the amount of formulation of laws in bulk quantities. So, the legislature or the very functions of the legislature has increased tremendously over the years. Keeping in mind the amount of legislation that takes place in a parliament in modern times, it is not possible to have a long drawn discussion on a matter which is being placed before the House for legislation. So, to keep away these limitations, the committee system has evolved over the years, and the significance of the committee system cannot be denied. The importance of the committee system are manifold. First of all, the parliament can save its precious time through the committees, which ensures required consideration by the committees over different issues. Secondly, flawless, effective and high quality legislation is possible by the parliament only due to the existence of the committee system. This is so since the members of the committee are selected few and they have ample time to discuss over the matters which have been tabled in the House for legislation, and this in turn helps to prevent the error, and this in turn helps to make less number of errors in the legislative procedure. Now, thirdly, the members of the committee are experts in their respective arena. So, these members, they discuss over the matters placed for legislation in the committee room, and there are ample time to speak on them. And not only that, there is less possibility, and also in most of the cases, they are not bound by the party whips. Fourthly, Parliament through these committees can exert its control over the executive, thereby preventing it from turning into a real despot. Fifthly, the committees also help the Parliament to examine the income and expenditure of the government. Sixthly, the committees enable the Parliament to feel the pulse of the people with regard to a bill placed for legislation, and not only that, it also provides a sort of a platform in which the citizens may be indulged to actively participate in the decision-making process by giving their written memorandas or their verbal oral depositions whenever it has been asked for by the committee. Finally, they also help to realize better and more constructive cooperation from the opposition bench. So, in short, we can say that the parliamentary committees basically it makes the work of the parliament smooth, efficient and expeditious. Now, in Indian Parliament is composed of two houses, namely the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, and in each of the houses have a great number of committees. The committees can be classified for our convenience into two major categories, namely the standing committees and the ad hoc committees. Let us examine these two types of committees one by one. First is the standing committee. Now, standing committees are the committees which have been constituted either by the House or the members being nominated by the presiding officer. Now, these committees are usually being constituted for 1 year, and it actually revises the reports from time to time and is basically permanent in nature. Now, the standing committees can further be subdivided into a number of committees. Let us examine those committees. First of all is the financial committees like the Estimate Committee, the Public Accounts Committee, the Committee on Public Undertaking. Secondly is the House Committee like the Business Advisory Committee, the Rules Committee, Committee on Private Members' Bills and Regulations, etc. Third is the Inquiry Committee like the Committee on Petitions, Privileges Committee, and so on. Fourth is the Scrutiny Committee like the Committee on Government Assurances, Committee on Subordinate Legislation, Committee on Papers laid on the table of the House, and so on. And fifthly, the service committees like the Library Committee, like the General Purposes Committee, Joint Committee on Salaries and Allowances, and so on. Now, the ad hoc committees. Ad hoc committees are those committees which have been constituted either by the House or its presiding officer, and they are basically being constituted to place their report on specific matters. And this has to be done within a stipulated period of time as specified by the House. The ad hoc committees are constituted for an unspecified period, and it ceases to exist once the work of the committee gets over. The strength of the members of committee varies from time to time. For instance, the Public Accounts Committee and the Committee on Public Undertaking has members which amounts to 22 in numbers, but the Committee on the Welfare of the Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes have members of around 30. So, the total numbers of members varies from one committee to another, but generally it has been seen that the maximum number of members in the standing committee in Rajya Sabha happens to be 10 in nature, while it is increased to 15 in the case of Lok Sabha. The members of the committee are elected by means of proportional representation, and in case of a bill is referred to a select committee, the minister is included in the committee if it is a government bill, and in case of a private member bill, the mover of the bill along with the minister may be included in the committee. Now, the quorum of the committee. Now, in a meeting of the committees, the quorum is 1/3 of the total strength of the political parties present in both the houses. As a result, the ruling party have an edge over the other parties since it has the absolute majority in the house. Not only that, we find that the ministers are mostly not included in these committees until and unless it becomes an absolute necessity. Backbenchers, for instance, have also gets an opportunity to play a noticeable roles through these committees. On 29th March 1993, Lok Sabha took a very important decision which may be termed as historic. It happened when the Lok Sabha unanimously adopted a motion to set up a number of standing committees in both the houses to examine the reports and the grants of all the departments so as to ensure the parliamentary control over the executive. This proposal had been raised for more than 20 years and it was finally being given a shape by the Rules Committee in the year 1993. And we find that the then Speaker of the Lok Sabha, Mr. Shivraj Patil, had advocated in favor of this system on two grounds. Firstly, he suggested that this system will ensure parliamentary control over the executive from turning it into a despotic ruler. And secondly, it was argued that the bulk of the parliamentary load on legislation will be reduced if the committee system is being set up. Now, apart from the demands of grants, the committees are also entitled to examine the bills which are highly technical in nature and the annual reports of the various departments and also the long-term policies of the government. Political parties shall have representation in these committees and their representation depends on the proportion of their strength in two houses of the parliament. And the discussion on the grants usually takes place in the break, that is when the parliament is adjourned and is not in session. Now, within the time as mentioned by the House, the committees has to submit their reports. Now, in respect of the bills, the committees shall consider the major principles of the bills and the clauses referred to them by the House. While making a report, they make it sure that there is a broad consensus and the member shall have the right to give his vote of dissent. Not only that, they may avail expert opinion whenever they feel that there is an urgent need of it, and they can seek a public reaction before submitting their report. The noteworthy feature of the committee system is that none of the members of the Council of Ministers are included in it. The procedure of the Committee on the Subordinate Legislation is governed by the instructions and the directions issued from time to time by the Speaker of the House. It is required that the rules and regulations made by the department are to be tabled before the House within a period of 15 days and once it is being published in the Gazette if the Parliament is in session. Now, otherwise, the committee is free to submit or to place before the House as early as possible, but in any case it has to be done within the period of 15 days of the next session. Now, the primary scrutiny is being done by the Secretariat, and once the Secretariat sends its suggestions and the reports to the departments concerned, then it asked for its explanation. Now let us examine the different parliamentary committees, their very functions of the different parliamentary committees one by one. First is the Business Advisory Committee. This committee is constituted at the commencement of the House with a view mainly to regulate the timetable of the work of the House and has 15 members. The Speaker himself is its chairman. The Committee on Private Members' Bills and Resolution. This again is a committee of 15 whose main function is to examine all private members' bills from different points of view before recommending them to be placed before the House for its consideration. The Select Committee on Bills. The occasion for the appointment of a select committee on any bill arises as and when a motion that the bill be referred to a select committee is made. Members of a select committee are appointed by the House. A select committee may hear expert evidence and representatives of special interest affected by the measure before them and submit its report to the House. The Committee on Petitions. This committee is nominated by the Speaker at the commencement of the House, and it too has a strength of 15 members. Now, the financial business of the Parliament is so complicated that the Parliament is unable to devote its time and energy to sufficiently work on the financial legislation to discharge its functions satisfactorily. So, to keep away this limitation, the Parliament has set up two financial committees, namely the Estimate Committee and the Public Accounts Committee, for the purpose of a smooth legislation of the financial processes. Now, the scrutiny of the expenditure of the government as proposed by the government is examined by a committee known as the Committee on Estimates or the Estimate Committee. Now, the Estimate Committee is usually constituted immediately after a budget is being announced in the House. Now, it is in charge with the detailed estimation of the budget. Now, there are four specific functions of the Estimate Committee. First of all, to report what economies, improvements in organizations, if efficiency or administrative reform consistent with the policy underlying the estimates may be effected. Secondly, to suggest alternative policies in order to bring about efficiency and economy in administration. Thirdly, to examine whether the money is well laid out within the limits of the policy implied in the estimates. And finally, to suggest the form in which the estimates shall be presented to the Parliament. Now, the Estimate Committee has 30 members who are elected by means of proportional representation from among the members of the Lok Sabha. They are actually being elected for a period of 1 year. The Public Accounts Committee. This committee is concerned about the manner and the results of spending the public fund. The members are elected by proportional representation, and no minister can be a member of this particular committee. The term of office of the members should not exceed more than a year. Now, the function of the committee is basically to examine the accounts of the government in all its financial transactions. Now, the Public Accounts Committee it is essential that the Public Accounts Committee has to satisfy certain following conditions. Let us examine those conditions. First of all, that the money show in the accounts having been disbursed were legally available for and applicable to the service or purpose to which they have been applied or charged. The expenditure conforms to the authority which governs it, and that every reappropriation has been made in accordance with the provisions made in this behalf under rules framed by competent authority. It is also the duty of the committee to examine the statements of accounts showing the income and expenditure of state corporations, manufacturing concerns, autonomous and semi-autonomous bodies, together with their balance sheets and profit and loss accounts. Now, unlike the Estimate Committee, the Public Accounts Committee has at its disposal the advice of the Comptroller and Auditor General. The Comptroller and Auditor General is usually regarded as the guardian of the public purse, and it is his duty to see that even not a even not a paisa is being used, or even not a paisa is being used until and unless they are approved by the competent authority of the parliament. One of the major function of the Controller and Auditor General is to audit the accounts of the government and to ensure that the expenditure incurred is done in conformity with the rules sanctioned by the Parliament. Now, there are certain other committees in the Parliament as well. Let us examine those committees, apart from the financial committees that we have been discussing so far. First is the Committee of Privileges. The Speaker nominates this committee at the commencement of the House, and it consists of 15 members. It is concerned with the examination of questions of privilege and the determination of any breach of privilege in the case which are referred to it. The Committees on Subordinate Legislation. The main function of the committee is to scrutinize and report to the House whether the powers to make regulations, rules, sub-rules, by-rules, etc. conferred by the Constitution or delegated by Parliament are being properly exercised within the limits of such delegation. Third is the Committee on Government Assurances. It is the function of this committee to scrutinize the various assurances, promises, undertakings, etc. given by ministers from time to time on the floor of the House and to report on the extent to which such assurances have been implemented. Fourthly, the Rules Committee. The main function of this committee is to consider matters of procedure and conduct of business in the House and to recommend any amendments or additions to these rules that may be deemed necessary. The committee is nominated by the Speaker and has 15 members. The Speaker himself is the ex officio chairman. Fifthly, the Committee on Public Undertaking. In November 1963, the Lok Sabha adopted a motion to set up a committee on public undertaking consisting of 10 members of the Lok Sabha and 5 of the Rajya Sabha. The committee will examine the following. First of all, the reports and accounts of the public undertakings. Secondly, the reports, if any, of the Controller and Auditor General on the public undertaking. And finally, to check whether their affairs are being managed in accordance with sound business principles and prudent commercial practices. The Ethics Committee is also one of the important parliamentary committees in India. The committee is actually being constituted in both the houses, that is in both Rajya Sabha and in Lok Sabha. In Rajya Sabha, it is the total number of members in the Ethics Committee amounts to 10, while in Lok Sabha it is 15. Now, the major function of the Ethics Committee is to see the moral and ethical conduct of members. Secondly, to prepare a code of conduct for members. And finally, to examine cases concerning the alleged breach of the code of conduct by members and so on. A critical study of the committee system suggests that the committee system has proved to be formidable. It has actually given an useful service to the cause of parliamentary control, over the executive. In fact, by 1971, the committee system has been found to do a formidable task, particularly the first 4 Lok Sabhas, and has earned a reputation and has earned an appreciation of being vigorous and independent body. Yet, at the same time, it cannot be denied that the committee system also suffers from certain limitations. Most of the members of the committee system are ranked politicians, and these members they are more involved in the world of politics, for due to which their activities in the committees get disturbed. Moreover, most of them are not legal experts, and so they cannot understand the legal and technical aspects of the problem. Now, to conclude, one may say that despite such criticisms, it cannot be denied that the committee has undoubtedly been an effective instrument in exercising the parliamentary control over the executive. The state, in most of the time, in fact, the people, the press, the parliament all have their vigilant eyes on the executive and the rules framed by them. So it has been found that, as I have stated in my introduction, the committee system, the existence of the committee system has been taken as a sort of innovation in the parliamentary system of our country, as a result of which a greater degree of autonomy and transparency have been ensured in the functioning of the executive agencies. Thank you.